Welcome back to Just Talking. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. So in today's segment we are going to talk about Moonfall. Spoiler alert. Let's start. 12th of January 2011, at a satellite repair station, a crew of astronauts led by Commander Jacinda "Joe" Fowler Halle Berry is performing maintenance. Astronaut Brian Harper, Patrick Wilson, Joe's companion, discovers an odd swarm of nanotech beings approaching them. The satellite is hit by the swarm. Brian tries to save his friend Alan Marcus, Frank Fiola, but the swarm knocks him back, and Marcus, along with another astronaut, is lost. Brian and Joe make it to Joe's ship and successfully travel back to Earth. After his tales of the swarm attacking them were dismissed as nonsense by NASA 18 months later, Brian was shamed. His connection with Joe deteriorates, and he eventually divorces his wife Brenda, Carolina Bartchak. She and their son Sonny relocate to Jersey, and Sonny grows estranged from his father. Casey Houseman, John Bradley, sneaks into the University of California 10 years later to acquire information on strange moon activity. He goes to work at a fast food restaurant, where he confirms the weird readings he's been getting from the moon's orbital track. Later, Casey pays a visit to his Alzheimer's-affected mother Elaine Kathleen Fee. Joe is still employed by NASA, but she is no longer married to her ex-husband, General Douglas Davidson, Aim Equivocor. They share custody of their son Jimmy, Zane Maloney, and Joe also homes Michelle Kelly Yu, a foreign exchange student who also looks after Jimmy. Joe hears about odd activity coming from the moon at work. Casey impersonates Brian on a class field trip to a museum, where he was asked to speak. When Brian arrives, Casey tries to deliver his readings and information on the moon approaching Earth, but Brian rejects him and has security remove him, but not before Casey throws his material at Brian to read. Brenda has remarried Tom Lopez, Michael Pena, and has 2 kids with him, Nikki, Ava Weiss, and Lauren, Michael Pena, Hazel Nugent. Brenda dials Brian's number because Sonny, Charlie Plummer, is being chased by the cops on the news. Brian attempts to attend his bail hearing after being detained, but the court postpones the session for a week due to his interruptions and the lawyer's statement that money is no object, forcing Sonny to spend that time in jail. As Brian tries to persuade the judge to let Sonny out, stories of the moon falling out of orbit begin to circulate. Joe's colleagues anticipate that the moon will begin to break apart in less than 3 weeks, sending city-sized bits of debris flying across the globe. NASA arranges for a shuttle launch with a 3-person crew to go to the moon and investigate the incident. The astronauts come face to face with the swarm, which surrounds the shuttle before breaking in and slaughtering the astronauts, as seen at NASA. Panic spreads around the globe, with looting and riots taking place. Soon after, a tsunami strikes California, and Brian is forced to assist Casey as he is swept away by the waves. Joe digs into the old NASA archives and finds helmet cam footage from Brian's suit from the first unsuccessful trip after seeing footage from the shuttle and discovering a hole carved into the crater floor. She is discovered by a man named Holden Field, Donald Sutherland, who works in the archives and claims that NASA is concealing information regarding the 1969 lunar landing. Joe is brought in to recruit a crew for a second trip and is introduced to Casey and Brian, the latter still enraged with her after believing she put him under the bus after their previous mission. They discover about an EMP designed to eliminate the swarm, and they borrow a shuttle from a museum in order to send it into orbit. Brian arranges for Sonny to be freed from prison and join Brenda and her family in Tom's cabin in Colorado before the mission is set. As they make the journey out there, he is joined by Michelle and Jimmy. As a new tragedy looms, Joe and Brian rush rapidly to put the expedition in motion, with Casey being requested to join them because he knows more about megastructures than they do. They all board the shuttle as a massive ocean wave approaches the city due to a gravitational anomaly. The crew takes off just before the water is about to hit them. On the way to Colorado, Sonny interacts with Michelle and Jimmy, and Sonny speaks to Doug to reassure him that Jimmy is okay. They are forced to walk after being robbed by a trio of criminals while on their route. People are being pushed up into the air by another gravitational change, but Michelle is clinging on Jimmy. They arrive at Tom's house eventually, but not before a crazed lady with a gun fires at them, mistaking them for intruders. The group reaches the moon in orbit and discovers the swarm around it. They arrange the bomb in a position where the swarm can grab it, but they note that it does not touch it. The swarm attacks their shuttle until their electronics are disabled. The crew discovers that the swarm is avoiding electronics on purpose. Joe believes there are two distinct entities on the moon, one of which is attempting to assist them. The trio arrives to the moon's base, where Brian is greeted by the moon's operating system, who appears to be Sunny as a youngster and speaks to him. The swarm, according to the OS, is a machine intelligence created by ancient humans. Before constructing a base on the moon and feeding off the energy of a white dwarf in the core, the swarm developed its own mind and killed its creators. The moon's internal structure has destabilized, causing it to slip out of orbit. Brian is told by the OS that the AI can be defeated, but that a human must remain behind to accomplish this. The robbers from earlier try to rob them, but Sunny and Tom use their firearms to keep them off. The robbers chase them down and try to run them off the road as they try to flee. The moon then produces a new gravitational shift, causing chunks of the Earth's mass to break off and fall to the ground. After Sunny manages to drive off a ramp to safety, the thieves' leader is crushed by rubble, and the remaining two criminals crash their car into a chunk of Mars. Meanwhile, in a last-ditch effort to save everyone, the President of the United States orders nukes to be launched at the moon. As the air begins to thin, Sunny, Tom, and the others put on oxygen masks and make their way to a cave for shelter. Tom gives Nikki his oxygen tank because hers is running low. He starts to run out of breath and tells Nikki to keep going till he passes out. When Nikki reaches her family, the oxygen begins to return, so Sunny and Michelle attempt to locate Tom, but Sunny is pinned down by a falling tree. On the moon, the group makes one final attempt to deliver the bomb to the swarm. Doug is holding his co-workers at gunpoint in order to prevent them from nuking the moon, believing Joe can still save them. When the trio draws close to the device, Brian offers to sacrifice himself in order to stay behind and deliver the explosives, but Casey steps in instead. Brian and Joe, he believes, have families to return to, whereas he has an opportunity to finally accomplish something in his life. Brian and Joe say their goodbyes, and the swarm surrounds Casey's pod before he detonates the bomb, killing the swarm and returning the moon to its proper orbit. Brian and Joe have gotten close enough to the Earth to take a pod ride. Brian and Joe make it back to their respective families. When Brian learns about Tom's demise, he informs Brenda that he was a wonderful man. He also informs Sunny that Casey is the hero who saved the world. Casey's consciousness gets uploaded to the base on the moon. He encounters the operating system, who seems to him as his mother. Casey is informed that they are going to embark on a major project. So that was the end of today's segment. Please make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. Cheers.